Good morning, good morning, good morning, good day, good evening, hello. Fellow family members, human beings, how is it with you today? How is it with you? How is all of it landing in you, with you, as you? Rainy day today here, over here in the northern hemisphere of this home space, this earth space. Yeah, cozy, rainy, and during this fall time, as we sort of cascade, and I would say cascade toward the end of this cycle, right? Toward the darkest day, toward the solstice. Not the darkest day, the longest night and the shortest day. Yeah, what has been rising up in me and just in my awareness is this thing called grief. Yeah, the grief. What is there to grieve? Right? The fall can bring up that melancholic, introspective aspect where some of us, I am definitely one of those, start to go into the recall, right? The deep seeking for what has been, right? What was, what is ready to be allowed to go, what might be rising up in the spring, right? We're going toward winter in the northern hemisphere. We're going toward that. Some might call it, in the farming vernacular, the fallow time, right? When in some places the snow lays heavy over the earth, right? The ice begins to form. And there can be a winter season for each one of us, even in the middle of summer, right? High summer. Winter can come, right? And how do we work with the wintering part that's coming, right? Seasonally. But also this movement as we head down in, right? Into the darkness, into the shorter days. Right? The grief, right? Grief is something that we, as those of us who live in the West, right? America, parts of Europe, right? Grieving doesn't really have a holding. It doesn't have a culture of holding, right? And there's much to grieve in this time that we find ourselves in, perhaps that we placed ourselves in, psychically, energetically, as souls. But to try to pass over grief, to try to sweep it under the rug, to compartmentalize it, to have somebody else be in charge of it, does ourselves a very big disservice, right? So what is here in you that wants your grief? Now that might sound like, oh my God, I don't want to grieve. I don't want to be in grief. But to everything there is a season, there is a time, there is a place to allow for the natural movement, right? The natural embodied movement of energy. And grief is inside of that. To allow yourself to Right, apply the same practices, the same exact practices, to pause, to lean back, to breathe so slowly so that you can actually contact that embodied place inside that perhaps has grief that hasn't been allowed to be expressed, right? And for some, maybe the grief has been being expressed for a long time, right? In some places right now on earth, grief has been a way of being for a year or years, right? As things crumble around and everything is taken. And for some of us, right, the grief was tamped down. Maybe for some, you were told, don't cry, right? Pull it together. Aren't you over that, right? Start dating, for example, if somebody has lost somebody and people feel uncomfortable, right, with the grief that is still visible in a human being's face when they have been taken outside of the space that they were used to, and they've had to let go of somebody in the body. These are sacred, sacred things. Sacred, right? And we want communal grief as well. We want to be able to grieve with our family members. And it doesn't have to be a personal loss, but to grieve things in the culture that have been destroyed, to grieve ways of being that we had gotten used to, that we were familiar with. If we don't allow this to flow through, we're not going to be able to release the tears or release the movement, right, that is needed in order to become yourself in the next space of awakening. Letting things move through, right? At the end of the harvest time, we take in the harvest, we bring in the harvest, we see what we've grown, right? In the early parts of September, see what we have grown, take in the harvest. Then starting to prepare the field for the fallow season, right? Laying down cardboard. I'm using farming vernacular, but this is such an earthly vernacular, right? In preparation for the season of, quote unquote, no growth, but something is gestating, right? Something is growing and preparing itself underneath the earth. So to let loose the tears, to let loose the cramped up, clamped down, perhaps, feelings, emotions, old past hurts or wounds that weren't allowed the full engagement of grief. Yes, I understand some of you might be saying, I don't want to get lost in grief. That's why you can make a container for it, right? You can actually decide, this morning I'm going to give my practice to grief. I'm going to actually just have my 20 minutes. And obviously we can't, again, contain grief, but that you give room, right? Just like the steam coming off from a pressure cooker. We undo the little top at the pressure cooker, let some steam out so that things can keep cooking in a good way and not create an explosion. So start to titrate and listen to and lean back into, are there places in me that need the flowing waters of grief? Have I put a lid on my deep feelings, the reservoir? Just see, check in, right? Maybe it's writing, right? Give some voice to it, give some movement to it, right? Perhaps share, with someone, something that you haven't shared before about a grief that you've had that you haven't released yet, that you haven't expressed yet, with a trusted friend, or find a group, right? In my community, I'm noticing that there are several grief rituals that are community-based, right? There's a lot that has been chaotic and intense, right? As we've talked about, the rubble is all around. So the grief is in the air. And the more conscious and awake you become about how you are facing life on earth, about how you wish to conduct your energy, right? The more centered you become, centered in the self, placing yourself at the center of the altar, doing your practices, the simple practices of pause, lean back, breathe slowly, embody, then you become a vessel, a strong, solid vessel that can move these energies through you, where you do not have to be leveled, decimated by the surprise of suppressed energies, suppressed grief, suppressed feelings. You become the sovereign conductor, conductress, creator, creatrix of your experience. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It does. But it means that you are allowing and you're not suppressing. So that you have room for more light, for more beauty, right? For more expansion, for more creativity, for more engagement with life. Okay, beauties. So much love to you, so much love to you. Holding so much big, beautiful space for your grief, for our collective grief, and for our refreshment, for the refreshment that tears can bring, that the rain can bring. Big, big, big love.